Springfield's Talk 1041 and good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Kicking off tomorrow morning at Scramblers, the Friday Road Show, and we will also have our happy hour at Vineyard Market, 4 to 6. That is in Ozark, and it's a great place. Going to have a great time. Buy one, get one on beers while we're out there. Also have price appetizers. So in addition to all of the incredible camaraderie of all of us hanging out and having a good time. Some good deals at the same time. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line is 447-KSGF if you'd like to send in any messages during the show. One of the things I do want to talk about today is the the increasingly apparent miscalculation the Democrats have made when it comes to this redistricting battle. And the gerrymandering issue has been around for a very, very long time, and the Democrats always used it to their advantage. Republicans, though perhaps in some capacity, would utilize gerrymandering to their advantage. On a national level, this was something that Democrats clearly utilized to their advantage, and the Republican Party, as oftentimes they wanted to play, quote, fair, and so they put themselves in an unfair position of giving Democrats an advantage, and then Trump comes along. And Trump changed the way that the Republican Party functioned, began playing by the Democrat rules. This is one of the many reasons that Democrats really, really hate the guy. This oftentimes gets overlooked. Why is it that they hate Trump so much more than past Republicans? And there are a number of reasons, but one of them is because, Democrats just really became accustomed to Republicans understanding the relationship. They got to call Republican elected officials and Republican voters all sorts of names. They got to call them racist and accuse them of hating children, wanting to starve children. You name it, climate deniers, you just go down the list. But Republicans were never, ever, ever, ever allowed to call Democrat names. Never. You can't do that. No. And Republicans abided by those rules until Donald Trump came along. When it came to, again, the issue of gerrymandering, that was a tool that was supposed to be reserved for Democrats. Trump comes along, he's like, Republicans, guys, don't hate the player, hate the game, but you got to play the game unless you want to lose the game. And so we saw finally Texas step up and say, all right. And then Gavin Newsom in California got really mad and said, and the Democrats nationwide pretended as if gerrymandering was something invented by Donald Trump, and Republicans are suddenly embarking on the threat of democracy, so we're going to have to fight back. And this really began a battle that is beginning to cause a great deal of lost ground for Democrats. And yesterday was a day in which, between the Supreme Court and Florida redistricting a map, it is becoming increasingly clear that Democrats may really be on the losing end of this, and they really should have probably left the Texas thing alone. Should have thought, had the emotional discipline to say, listen, we've been getting away with this for a really long time. All right, fine. They want to do this with Texas. Let's just let it happen, and then we'll try and move on. And as long as they don't continue on with this thing, then we'll just kind of let well enough alone. Let's not poke that hornet's nest. But they couldn't help themselves. And so this battle is one that they may end up very, very sorry that they embarked on. And there's a Supreme Court ruling that took place regarding gerrymandering that took place in Louisiana that was based on race. It was specifically ordered by lower courts telling Louisiana, well, you have to create a district that's all black people, or a majority of black people. And the Supreme Court said, you cannot do that. No, the Constitution kind of does not allow you to specifically draw voting maps based off of people's skin color. As you can imagine, there were 3 justices that disagreed and felt that that sort of racism should be part of our country, but they were on the losing end of it. Then at the same time, Florida moving forward with a new congressional map there, and of course the Virginia Supreme Court increasingly looking like they're going to throw out the Democrats' gerrymandering. It's just one boom after boom, another boom that have been, fortunately, defeats against the Democrats. We're going to get an update on the news. And then I want to talk a little bit about a race that is going on. I touched on once, maybe twice, as a note of interest because it was beginning to get a little bit of chatter. But increasingly, it could be a symbolic race of something larger that is going on or has been going on, and this is the race out in Los Angeles, in which you have former reality TV guy Spencer Pratt running as a Republican against a handful of Democrats, and he is not only out fundraising against the Democrats, including incumbent Karen Bass, but has been releasing a couple of different ads that are getting some notation, and Democrats are beginning to get a little bit worried that they may lose control of that city to this guy who has no idea what he's doing. He's not a career politician. He's not one of those on the left. But part of what is resonating with the average people is he's just straight up saying, listen, these people have jacked up our city. Enough of this. This is ridiculous. This has got to stop. And that, amazingly enough, is resonating with a great deal of people. And though he's not by any stretch expected to walk away with the race, and many people recognize, listen, this is a Democrat-run city, and you got, the Democrats running the elections, and people who have no clue what's going on, they get bussed to the voting booths in order to vote Democrats, and so there's just a tremendous amount going against him. But the fact that they're a little bit worried is something that I think does not need to be ignored. So that's some of what we've got today. Also, Author of the Week in the third hour, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Right now, that latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 45. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 63. And for Saturday, sunny with a high near 63.
The race out in Los Angeles for mayor is one that generally, outside of Los Angeles and parts of California, would not be making any sort of headlines whatsoever. But it is for a couple of reasons. One, because it is, though not likely, it is increasingly becoming possible that a Republican could win that mayor's race. Possible. Glimmers of hope. Not only that, but the Republican running is pretty much only known for the fact that he was on a reality TV show on MTV called The Hills that was, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And it was a documentary, but it was done in sort of a soap opera drama style instead of a Real Housewives situation or Big Brother. It had more of a storyline feel to it. It was an interesting hybrid. And there were a number of very notable people that would come out of it making careers for themselves. And you had Spencer Pratt that really did not necessarily define himself into any particular category outside of that, but he is now as a guy running for mayor, and he's one of the many people who lost his home to the fires that took place and was, like so many other people in that who lost their homes in the fire, not real happy with what they would learn was the lead up to it, what decisions were made by local government that helped prevent the stoppage of it, and then the fact that 99.9% of them are still sitting there without homes after being promised we're going to cut all the red tape and have you all back in homes lickety-split. It's just become a nightmare for them because, of course, it's a Democrat-run city in a Democrat-run district in a Democrat-run state. This is socialism at work. This is why when you go through socialist countries, what isn't multi-family living units, even those as well, everything's dilapidated. Nothing is new and improved, and nothing is upgraded. One, because economically, government has made it so burdensome for the average person, they can't afford to do it. But secondly, even if they wanted to, government and have the resources to do it, government makes it such a hassle with red tape and rules and regulations that you can't ever get it done. And there are a lot of people in Los Angeles that don't see this as Republican or Democrat. They see this as complete total incompetence and detachment from what is actually seriously impacting us as citizens versus a guy in this race who isn't a politician, who isn't part of these elite liberal circles, who's saying, this is insane. We have to stop this. And if I become mayor, we're going to turn this around. It does not have to be like this. And what you're seeing is this resonate with a great deal of people. Now, the LA Times has a piece noting that Pratt, and there's a councilwoman who is a Democrat. She's a socialist. She, of course, is uber wealthy and elite. She's married to like a Hollywood guy. He was, I don't know if he was the developer, director, or producer. He had a very instrumental hand in the NBC sitcom 30 Rock that had Alec Baldwin and Tina Fey. Is actually one of the greatest sitcoms, in my opinion, for my personal taste, to have been on relatively modern TV. But she's a rich Hollywood elite gal and an activist. She's never really had any sort of job outside of that other than running for city council, and she is also running for mayor. Now, interesting note about her as somebody who welcomes the label socialist. One of her priorities is giving tax incentives to the big corporate Hollywood studios in order, of course, this is the world her husband lives in order to sort of bring Hollywood back its been noted by a number of people in the industry how Hollywood has just become broken, dilapidated, how all of the rules and regulations and taxes has made it so burdensome for that industry that they outsource so much of the work to either states like Georgia or countries like Ireland, which are much more business friendly. And so, of course, the irony with this individual is she claims she's a socialist. That's all about, the working man. And here she is, because her husband and she lives off the wealthy industry of Hollywood, is running partially on this platform of catering to Hollywood. Then there is Karen Bass, who is the current mayor of Los Angeles. And then there's some other guy who is not really doing big in terms of fundraising haul, but he's got a lot of money. He ran against Karen Bass last time around, lost by 10 percentage points, and he's given himself a bunch of money and is going to be on the ballot again. So the Los Angeles Times is noting that the current mayor, Karen Bass, is up against 3 well-financed challengers in the June 2nd primary. And this is a primary, incidentally, in which if one candidate gets 50+% of the vote, they become mayor. If none do, then the top 2 vote getters, regardless of political party, will run off against one another, similar to the governorship of California. So she's up against the reality TV star Spencer Pratt, council member Nithya Raman, who are leading the pack in fundraising since the start of the year. Pratt, whose home was destroyed in the Palisades fire, has raised nearly $540,000 for his campaign since January 1st, according to figures reported this week to the city's Ethics Commission. Rahman, who joined the race in February, has brought in $530,000 in contributions through the April 18th filing period, much of it from writers, producers, and other in the entertainment industries. So, and you people on the left, if you will ever wake up to recognize that socialism is not about fairness, it's not about closing the income gap, it's about choosing who gets to be uber wealthy and elite, and then everyone else gets relegated to lower class. And this is such a perfect example of it. Left-wing Democrat socialist. And who's backing her? The Hollywood elites. Who's writing her checks? The uber rich. Not too much unlike Ma'am Donnie. Bass, for her part, reported taking in nearly $495,000 since January 1st. She began fundraising for re-election in 2024, however, so she still has nearly $2.3 million in cash on hand. So overall, she still has that advantage. But in terms of the recent fundraising, though it isn't by a tremendous degree, Pratt, the guy by who all accounts in terms of on paper shouldn't be registering whatsoever, is out fundraising the other 2 what would be considered top candidates, including the incumbent mayor. He just dropped a new ad, and I'll play it for you. It's a 30-second ad, and it is getting a significant amount of attention. The California Post has a story, as well as a number of other national publications that it's about the ad itself and how. In fact, here's a New York Post headline: Spencer Pratt praised for, quote, brilliant new ad attacking mayoral rivals. And I'm going to play the audio for you, and just to give you a sense of the visuals, he references the homes that Bass lives in and that Rahman, the councilwoman, lives in, and their mansions. And then he is essentially, you're seeing shots of Los Angeles, the deplorable conditions, and then you'll hear him at some point say, this is where I live, and at this point, it's a trailer home. And the reason he lives in a trailer home is because his home was burned down, and the city has put him, like 99.9% of other fire victims in the city, in the position of not having homes. And so this is the ad that's currently running. What is interesting about the analysis of this ad as being brilliant is that really it isn't. I suppose it's brilliance in the sense that it's so simple and straightforward. It's about results. It's not about rhetoric. It's saying, look where the mayor lives. This is her mansion. Look where this mayoral candidate lives. This is their mansion. And then a shot of all the deplorable conditions, including the tents and human feces, everything else that has become somewhat synonymous with Los Angeles, noting they don't have to live with the results of their leadership. This is a key to socialism and Democrat policy, by the way. They live in their gated communities. They all send their kids to private schools that are unaffected by the public school systems that they promote. They make sure that the homeless shelters are built far away from their community so they don't have to walk past the results of their policies. And then he notes, which again speaks to, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people who were affected by those fires, and this is where I'm living, in this trailer because of their policies. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be this way for me. It doesn't have to be this way for you. One of the reasons that this race is beginning to get some national attention, aside from the fact that, again, reality TV star up against establishment, Republican Los Angeles, doing significantly well when it comes to raising dollars, is because increasingly across this country, people, particularly in cities, particularly in blue states, are beginning to see things through this lens, and perhaps not necessarily as stark as having their home burned to the ground, learning of the incompetency that led to it, and then being blocked from restarting your life by, rebuilding your home. But when it comes to crime, when it comes to education, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to regulations, and this message, though it is specifically a message to those who live in Los Angeles, I think it's going to be getting an increased amount of attention because it is a message that resonates with a lot of Americans. And frankly, it's largely the sort of messaging that allowed Donald Trump to be successful. A guy that came along and said, it doesn't have to be this bad. We can make America great again. I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but Pratt at the end referenced making Los Angeles golden again. I think it was actually a really smart move, staying away from making it great again and doing sort of the make Los Angeles great again. And, because then it would almost seem as if, he's trying to ride coattails, but customizing it to making the city golden again. We can do that, and owning it, I think, really was it was a smart move, deliberate or otherwise. There's a couple other components to this I want to touch on coming up here in a moment. And like I said, I know like it's an LA race. What difference does it make? I think this is speaking to people well beyond Los Angeles at this point. Okay, I'm trying to see where I am here. All right. Two things here. One, we do have happy hour coming up on Friday. That would be tomorrow. That is going to be our good friends Vineyard Market and great weather for outdoor. If you want to do the outdoor on the patio, or if you want to do indoor as well, get some dinner. Apps will be half price and beer, buy one get one for us while we're out there from 4 to 6 o'clock. Also, tomorrow we will in the morning be kicking it off with our Friday Road Show, and that is at Scramblers. We also are going to have tickets for Hairball at Black Oak Amphitheater Saturday, May 9th. This is all 80s stuff, and it's arena rock style. It's featuring recreations of AC/DC, Twisted Sister, Kiss, Van Halen, Motley Crue, Queen, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, and a whole lot more. If you want a pair of passes, we're not even going to make you sign up, register. Just come by, ask for them, and as long as we have some, we'll give them out. Once we run out, we run out. But hopefully we'll have enough for you. We've got more than just a pair, but we don't have a tremendous amount. Kind of give you an idea on that, so you can just swing by and grab those tomorrow as we broadcast live Scramblers 6 to 9. Sorry that was a long break, everyone. I just kind of goofed on
You
something.
messed some things up over
Hey, the
there.
good news is we're going to have an extra long segment.
There you go. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 45. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 63. And for Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 63.
We're talking about this race out in Los Angeles because of the larger implications of it and tea leaves, maybe, potentially. It's interesting, and she may be listening this morning, but I oftentimes, there's a number of people that I utilize as markers as to what average people, I don't want to say, actually normal people are getting in the loop of, as opposed to people that are constantly checking out what's going on politically and so forth. And one of my sisters, had several weeks ago sent me something about Spencer Pratt. And she doesn't live in L.A. She lives over on the other side of the state of Missouri, and so that was interesting to me because, again, she's interested in politics and she follows, but she's just not a weirdo about it like a lot of us are, and because she has a life and kids and all sorts of activities and a career and a family, so she's just normal. But and then I notice more and more, and so that's always interesting to me when people start paying attention to something that wouldn't normally be on the radar, because that means it's resonating with average people. And this deal with Spencer Pratt out there in L.A. And I want to rerun. I'm going to play 2 ads of his. And, of course, again, he's just former reality TV guy. He's relatively young, never been in the political world. He's running as a Republican in California. It is a jungle primary. Top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, will move on to the general if no one gets 50+% of the vote. Karen Bass, who's been a complete disaster, particularly when it comes to the Palisades fires and the rebuild, which has been non-existent, is running for re-election, as is a socialist Democrat council member who's rich Hollywood elite, married to a Hollywood guy. Most of her campaign fundraising is coming from the Hollywood elite, typical socialist. And but his message is simple. This city's become a screw up, and it doesn't have to be this way, and I want to fix it for all of us, for the average citizens. And so an ad that's getting a lot of buzz is one which, in the background, you see the mayor's mansion, you see this Democrat socialist mansion that she lives in, then you see essentially what everyone else has to live in, including Spencer Pratt and his wife, which is a trailer because their home burned down and they haven't been able to rebuild because of government. And this is that ad.
This is where Mayor Bass lives. You notice something? Or here, where Nicky Raman's $3 million mansion sits. They don't have to live in the mess they've created where you live. This is where I live. They let my home burn down. I know what the consequences of failed leadership are. That's why I'm running for mayor. For my sons and the rest of us Angelinos that want to stop these corrupt politicians from destroying our city. We are going to get the golden age of Los Angeles back.
Now, that is, again, getting attention even with some national publications like the New York Post, accompanied by the fact that in terms of fundraising, the most recent quarter, he has out-fundraised the opponents, including Karen Bass, though, of course, Karen Bass has a bank of dollars because of past fundraising. Just the most recent quarter, as people are beginning to pay closer attention, and Spencer Pratt is out there getting his name out there more, so those donations are rolling in. There's another ad that's running, not on television, it's just online, and it's a bit longer. I don't know if I'll play it in its entirety, but just to give you a sense of the environment right now in Los Angeles regarding this race.
My trip right off the map while the hills caught fire. She was posting finally says go out to gain smoke in the sky.
She was saying, look what you left on the block. LA looking like a closet where the young and the tall. Latinos for the rap we're singing, cause we're tired of this dirty beat.
All right, and it goes on with additional lyrics.
Pop.
It's animated. It is very stylistic. It's all about it's Latinos for Spencer Pratt, and the first half of it specifically, the lyrics are about Karen Bass and how she left knowing the fire was coming, has just created this havoc for the average person. And the song's titled Spencer Saca la Basura, which translates to Spencer Take Out the Trash. And one of the constant visuals it's just funny looking, but in an effective way. During that portion of it, it's the animated. The streets are lined with people cheering on Spencer Pratt as he has a big sort of garbage bin on wheels pushing down the street past them, and it's filled with garbage. And Karen Bass is sitting in the middle of it, and they're singing "Take Out the Trash." It's getting buzz. And while again, this doesn't mean that suddenly a non-elite, non-politician, Republican of all sins is going to win that mayoral race in Los Angeles. And again, reality TV star. And incidentally, his character on that show was that of a real kind of douchebag villain, which he's like, that was my role. He said that was the role of my quote character. And so, yeah, I really leaned into it. The fact that he is getting the traction that he is tells you how miserable the people of California have become under the failed leadership of Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, by the way. Part of what is so amazing about the failure to rebuild the Palisades is the fact that Gavin Newsom is running for the presidency. And before the smoke cleared, had been out there bragging about how he was going to cut all of the red tape. You are going to see rebuilding done at record speeds, yet you still have virtually none of it occurring. You just have nightmare story after nightmare story of average people who don't live in the mansions that the elite left live in, talking about how it is they've been prevented from moving on with their lives by the leadership of California. And the fact that Gavin Newsom running for president has not, I mean, this is just the way my mind thinks. I'd get that crap fixed so fast if I was running for president. The fact that he hasn't tells us one of two things. He just is so incompetent, can't do it, doesn't conceptually, he can't do it. He's not like a Donald Trump that says get it done, and when people are like, we can't get it done, he gets rid of them and finds people who can. Gavin Newsom doesn't have the ability to do that. Or being a Democrat in California, you become so insulated from the repercussions of failure that you don't recognize that in a certain arena, like a national stage, you can't get away with that stuff. That while in California, you can fail over and over and over again, as long as you're a Democrat, you just get reelected over and over and over again. But that doesn't necessarily work across the country. It may in New York, it may in Illinois, it may in New Jersey, it may in Washington, all of those blue states. But in the red states, doesn't fly so much. And so this failure to take care of that problem in particular, either which way, either shows that Gavin Newsom either can't or he just doesn't care. And of course, Karen Bass. I think she's just completely incompetent. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs, you got home loan wants, you got home loan desires. You got the characters in their team. I want a great homeloan.com. It's who I've used. Sarah's used them. I know so many of you have used them as well. I used them not just for my initial home loan, but refinancing. They're great about, and this is what it was with me, because I don't necessarily pay attention to that stuff, but I hadn't been in to that particular initial home loan for but a couple of years maybe, and they reached out and were like, hey, because of just, changing economic conditions, interest rates, we think it may already be ideal for you to refinance. And it was. I went from a 30 to a 20 and dropped my my payment. Now, that sort of proactive reach out and action isn't the sort of thing you're necessarily going to get with the big guys, if you know what I mean. But that's part of why so many people love the characters in their team, because of how customized and focused they are. So refinancing, home loans, first one, 80th one, whichever. Reverse mortgages, I want a great homeloan.com, because you do. Pyramid Roofing Company text line. Hey, please note that the Laker family is backing Pratt. There have been numerous stories about the filings, the donation filings that are required by law for the L.A. race for mayor, and Spencer Pratt outraising during the most recent quarter the current mayor and the current Democrat Socialist councilperson running. And one of the names that did pop up was the former owner of the Lakers, who recently sold her majority share. And I think that while some on the left may see this as they'll what they normally do is they go on a witch hunt, as you know. And if they find high-profile people who have donated to anyone other than a left-winger, they really broadcast it in order to trash on them, to get boycotts against them in whatever capacity. And this trend goes back to the Obama era. And Obama, I argue, kicked it off when Mitt Romney was running against him, and he publicly denounced one of Mitt Romney's donors, putting a target on him. This is just an American. Wasn't a politician, but someone who had made a donation to Mitt Romney. It was relatively, I forget who the guy was. I don't know if he was big in the financial world, but he was someone that was relatively influential. And then the Democrats, under the leadership of President Obama, targeting that guy because he participated in the democratic process. And that really began the wave of intimidation campaigns by people on the left towards average citizens who donated money to the wrong people. I think, however, if there is an attempt, whether it is for the owner or former owner of the Lakers or other folks, I think it's going to backfire. I think that it is going to smack, again, of the elitism of, you'd better do things the way we want, otherwise you will be demonized. But at the same time, it could also work in the favor of Spencer Pratt by giving people who normally would never vote for some reality TV star who's a Republican as mayor of Los Angeles, kind of give them permission to do so. Like, well, if you got the Laker family, clearly they're not idiots, right? Maybe it is okay to vote for that guy. What's the worst that can happen? The Democrat Socialist councilwoman who's married to Hollywood elite, that is also running, has scolded The Daily Show for making light of Pratt's bid for L.A. mayor. And because, again, Hollywood elitists, what do? They mock the average person. And that's what they view Spencer Pratt as. Here's an average person who thinks that he can do better, and so they ridicule him. And I suspect, and some of it may be because of her husband's direction, being Hollywood and marketing, that the councilwoman recognizes that you guys should not be, Trump got mocked relentlessly as well. There are some real similarities between the campaigns I would argue, in the environment of Donald Trump first running and Spencer Pratt. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Spencer Pratt's like a Donald Trump, but like Donald Trump, he was mocked. He's being mocked, rather. He's just a reality TV star. Let's make fun of the guy for even trying, and look what happened. And I think that's what Councilwoman Rahman is arguing here in telling the Daily Show, you guys better not dismiss this guy. Now she's taking the tact that Democrats increasingly take and saying you should not dismiss him because, quote, he's a threat. And this, of course, has become the leading charge of Democrats, is that all Republicans are a threat. And I suppose if she's lucky, he'll get assassinated by some Democrat activist. Springfield's Talk 104.1, and hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nick Reed, and give you a bit of advice. I like to do that. I like to provide you information. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I know right now, there is someone listening who is getting ready to put their house on the market, or perhaps knows someone who is, or on the flip side of the coin, needing to buy a new home. Maybe you got to sell and buy at the same time. One of you are listening to me right now, at least one of you. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. You think of this as the stars aligning, as God sending you a message. Right now you're thinking, that's crazy because this is where I right now, and he's telling, then do it. Well, I've already thought about going. Okay, do that if you want. But there's a reason you're hearing me now. And a lot of you, it may not be today, may not be tomorrow, it may be a week from now, maybe a year from now. But as long as she's still in the game, which I'm sure she will be until her dying breath because it's her passion, I'm telling you, buying and selling homes, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. You can find her under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. You can tell I really like her. She does a good job. There was a Fox News story regarding voter registration and the switcheroo that people do. A lot of states, you are registered under a party affiliation. They do this so when it comes primary time and you go to vote, here's my voter ID. If you need one in that state, here's my voter card, whatever. They look it up and they're like, oh, you are a Democrat. Here is the Democrat ballot. That's different than in Missouri where you just get to pick whichever one you want. I guess if you want to look at it as a benefit of registering in the state is it gives you signals as to where people are identifying when it comes to political party, because sometimes people change party affiliation. Or people who are registering for the first time, you can see the trends. If generally you get a 40-60 and then it becomes 50-50, you can see one party's starting to increase its influence with new voters while the other party's losing influence with new voters. So it can be valuable research. West Virginia. A wave of party switching in West Virginia is reshaping the state's political landscape with tens of thousands of voters, including more than 16,000 Democrats registering as Republicans since early 2024. We're not talking a decade here. I mean, we're talking a relatively short period of time, a couple years. This according to new data released by the Secretary of State. Now, obviously, you're going to have some swapping on both sides. You'll have some Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican. You'll have independents go one way or another. But what is occurring in West Virginia is a massive swing from Democrat to Republican. West Virginia Secretary of State Chris Warner reported that 68,235 voters have changed party affiliation since January 31st of 2024. That's massive. You think about that. Will you look up the population of West Virginia over there? I'm just curious. I mean, regardless of its size, over 68,000 people in just 2 years.
It's roughly 1.7 million.
So that, I mean, it's a little smaller than I thought. So, and that's just population. So I don't know what registered voters are, but you're talking about 68,000 that changed party affiliation. That just seems like a lot to me. That's not, people don't change party affiliation that often. I mean, maybe more than I thought, but this is still significant. Part of the reason there's an article about it on Fox News. Among the biggest changes, 16,910 voters switched from Democrat to Republican, while another 28,000 unaffiliated voters also moved to the GOP. So you're looking at those numbers, and that is roughly 37,000 people switched to Republican from either unaffiliated or Democrat. At the same time, 12,299 Democrats left their party to become unaffiliated. So they just walked away from all parties whatsoever, altogether. Like, we just don't want anything to do with any of the parties. Don't like Democrats, but don't like Republicans, so we're becoming unaffiliated. While 7,559 Republicans also dropped their party affiliation, suggesting a broader reshuffling among voters across the state. Then there were smaller shifts included 5,200 moving from unaffiliated to Democrat and only 2,400 switching from Republican to Democrat. As of April 23rd, the data Warner shared showed, that's the Secretary of State, showed 519,756 registered Republicans. There were 327,000 registered Democrats and 301,000 independents. The latter two add up to about 620,000 people, outnumbering the registered Republicans. So when you take the independents, when you throw independents in there with Democrats. The changes come as West Virginia prepares for its upcoming primary with more than 1.19 million registered voters currently eligible to participate. So that answers my question. How many? So that was registered voter number that you gave. Is that what you gave?
No, I said 1.7.
Oh, okay.
A
So
little
they have
over
a
1.7.
very high, that seems like a high percentage of registered voters. Maybe it's not. But to have that many, 1.19, so about 1.2 million. Officials said the number will be finalized ahead of the April 28th deadline for the upcoming voter rolls. Recent shifts in party affiliation drawing attention as West Virginia continues to evolve politically, with voter registration trends reflecting changing allegiances across the state. And then it goes into some of the analysis. But I believe increasingly what we're seeing is the continued gelling of the normal people versus the elites. And Donald Trump really kicked this off. And because of the Democrats' reaction to Donald Trump, that they have really reinforced that. What Donald Trump has tried to do in market himself as representing the average person, the Democrats have done everything they can to reinforce that that is true. While Donald Trump was out there winning over union workers, blue-collar workers, average moms and dads, we've seen what, Democrats out there getting the Hollywood elite to campaign for them, clinging to 8-year-olds, getting sex change operations and forcing women to lose scholarships to men, and these 2080 issues in which the 20% are the elite that generally are not impacted by the negative results of those policies. And then you've got just normal people just want to live their lives. They just want their kids left alone. They don't want to have to worry about their kid going to school and then having some counselor or art teacher convince them because, they feel uncomfortable going through puberty. It means there's, quote, something wrong with them and they're in the wrong body and so they need hormone therapy. They don't want to have to worry about because they don't comply with the new name they gave themselves to identify in an opposite gender, that Division of Family Services is going to get called on them, or their daughter losing out a scholarship, or just running through the park and being murdered by somebody in the country illegally who was caught 8 times before but let out by a sanctuary city. The irony of the left trying to portray Trump as a king and Trump supporters as these authoritarian individuals. It's the Trump supporter. They just want to be left alone. Leave us alone. You want to pretend to be something else. You want to do this or that. That's fine, but just leave me out of it. Stop forcing me to revolve my life around you. And when it comes down to it, if you take the segment of the population that really isn't that interested in politics, maybe they vote presidential elections, But outside of that, they really don't pay much attention. If you take that person, on average, they want to be left alone. They don't want some protester on the side of the street screaming at them. They want to be able to go to work or take their kids to school without worrying about the road being blocked by some left-wing lunatic. They just want to be left alone. And which of the two parties offers that? Certainly isn't the left. That demands compliance, that goes around with these loyalty tests, demanding to know, who do you support? Who did you vote? Oh, you're wearing a MAGA hat. We're going to throw you out of a restaurant. And while you have these elite, rich, white, liberal-run cities, the Hollywoods, with the massive spike of homelessness and drug use and crime throughout the streets, it doesn't surprise me that increasingly, be it West Virginia or other what I would call just normal people, parts of the country, when you start looking at what party they leave and what party they go to, it mimics the actual movement that people pick up their families, leaving one state to go to the other, and they're leaving blue states to go to red. They're leaving Democrat Party to go to Republican in terms of overall numbers. Now, as a party, at the same time, it's as if the Republican Party wants to, as best as possible, diminish the gains from that. As we see, we've talked about this, and it's going to be an ongoing theme for some time. The John Thunes, the establishment Republicans that desperately, once Donald Trump is gone, want to go back to the days of John McCain and Mitt Romney, in which they just are able to get along with Democrats. Sometimes they're in power, sometimes they're not. And all of this average person crap, they're able to do away with. That's a whole nother fight that we're going to be dealing with on our hands. We got latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 45. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 63. And for Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 63. Hey, real quick before you get started,
Yeah?
don't know if you heard that ad for Dent Cure.
I think they're a
but
traffic sponsor.
Yes, I wanted to give them a little shout out. I was over there yesterday because, like many of you out there, I too experienced incredible damage to my vehicle, all thanks to that hailstorm that happened earlier this week. So if you are out there just like trying to figure out who do I go to, where do I go, Dent Cure, they were scheduling about 2.5 weeks out. That was as of yesterday afternoon, so it might be a little bit further out at this point. But hey, 2.5 weeks, that ain't nothing, because I know that some people were scheduling like beginning of July.
They're
So
good folks over
they
there. I've
really are
known them for a
very,
while.
very, very, very nice. So if you are trying to find somebody, remember Dent Cure. They are off of like West Bypass and Sunshine, just past Menards. They're kind of tucked away.
It's that place I think a lot of people may pass by and they're like, what exactly is down there? They're these the corrugated metal sort of garage buildings,
Yes.
and it's a fenced in area, and if you're driving fast, you could easily pass it. But yeah, it's
Which
like,
I did the first time.
yeah. So it's easy to do, or even think, is that like a public? Can I go down there? But there's a number of businesses. I think most of them are vehicle related in some
Yes.
not all of
Yeah.
them. Most of them are vehicle related in capacity, but yeah, they're good people.
They really are. So if you're looking for somebody, Dent Cure.
Yes, I know a lot of people are.
Yes.
That is for sure. Just going through the different headlines, and there was some other headline about Sydney Sweeney, and she apparently had filmed a cameo for the new what's that film? It's the Prada.
Oh, no.
Whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're asking the wrong person.
It was. I didn't see the movie. Devil Wears Prada. Yeah, Devil Wears Prada. I never saw the first one, but it was wildly popular. I mean, very, very popular. And there is a new one that came out or is coming out. She apparently had filmed a cameo in it, but it was cut from the production. And so, of course, a lot of talk as to why it is. As usual, as best I can tell, she's been very professional and mature about it, and she's not really weighed in on it. But the rumor mill is that she was cut because she's MAGA. And, first off, quite frankly, I don't know if that film seems more like kind of a lefty elite film. And I could be wrong because I didn't see the first one. But just today, I don't know, things feel different today. Even when I see the trailer, the left has become they have become so elite. Elitism now, to me, seems leftist, whereas 10 years ago, it really didn't have one political affiliation or another that was so out loud. But because Hollywood has been so insistent, and the uber wealthy, I'm not talking about CEOs necessarily that get really big paychecks, but the George Soros type and a lot of these, obviously, again, Hollywood types and studio owners, they've become so aggressive about you have to believe their way or you are a horrible person that should be banished from society, that when I see a film that portrays the elite life, to me it's just, I see leftism, and I see people who look at the average person as scum, who is some sort of heathen that doesn't even deserve to be given the time of day. And so when I think of that, and I think, yeah, they probably wouldn't want Sydney Sweeney in a film like that, as opposed to just a film for, that's about normal people. Now, that being said, you were talking earlier just about this shift in dynamic that has been occurring for some time, and how the Republican Party has solidified itself between the two parties as the party that normal people will go to. Now, that I think normal people that are paying attention increasingly go to one of two places, either the Republican Party or no party whatsoever. Meanwhile, the Democrat Party not only loses normal people, but they've gotten to the point they demonize them. And this isn't necessarily a new trend. Look at how it is that the left has treated the normal, average family. I mean, you can't even use that terminology today without being bashed for it. Like, the idea that there is actual meaningful benefit to a child having a mom and a dad in a home together is something that the left actively promotes against. Sydney Sweeney, however, I think is just a great example of this in the sense that it is clear. You see articles about her being MAGA Barbie, references MAGA Barbie. What has Sydney Sweeney ever did, said, or posted that was MAGA? What interview did she give in which she was promoting, specifically MAGA values, talking about borders, talking about crime, talking about Donald Trump? None. Nothing. Zero. If you are to do anything you can to find out what she's been out there promoting, politically speaking, you're going to find nothing. She's actually just, in that way, normal. And look how they treat her for it. See, this is what I mean about the left isn't just not normal. They are hostile towards average people who just want to live their lives and be left alone. And Sydney Sweeney's a perfect example of that. Her sin is that she is not this proactive left-winger. She just doesn't want to have anything to do with it. That's not who she is, publicly anyhow. So, of course, this made them suspicious. They had to go figure out, how is she registered? She's registered to vote, or was at one point. I don't know if she still is, in a state that requires you to put down a party affiliation. She put Republican because apparently that may be what her parents are. But outside of that, she hasn't done robocalls for any Republicans and to Donald Trump. She hasn't encouraged people to vote one way or another. She hasn't told you as a rich Hollywood person how it is that you should vote. And for that, they label her the enemy. You think about how absurd all of that is, and how they demand you either be on their side or you are going to be declared the enemy. You don't have to be someone that is actually the, quote, opposition. All you have to do is not outwardly agree with them and outwardly, proactively be on their side, and you're just as much the enemy, and Sydney Sweeney's a perfect example of that. I mentioned earlier that if you have the average American that isn't really politically one way or the other, and they just want to be left alone, the Democrat Party demonizes them, and it hasn't, I don't think, really been recognized in that capacity, the impact of Sydney Sweeney and the maybe even subconscious message that the average person gets with the demonization of someone like her, that just wants to not really be out there preaching to people, particularly as somebody who's uber wealthy, how it is that they should believe and how it is that they should vote. In that way, she's like most normal people, which is why the Democrat Party hates her.
Fields Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 45. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 63. And for Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 63.
Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, all of your outdoor needs. You had some drainage issues, maybe. This could be as a business, it could be as a homeowner, with not just obviously the hail that came down, but we all had water in some capacity, and sometimes it's the fact that it comes really fast and it doesn't have time to make its way down into the soil. And there's a number of reasons these issues can happen, but it can be very, very damaging to your home, and it's that slow over time damage through erosion, or you can have molding issues that occur. There's a whole litany of problems, and it's easy to ignore because we don't see so much of it for an extended period of time. But the damage it can do, it can be just as damaging as fire, just again slow. Point being is, of all of the tremendous premier work that you get from Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor with their landscaping and hardscaping and upkeeping and things that you can see at hunterhardscapes.com, that drainage issue is one that they have expertise in as well. And they do it in a premier fashion as well, where it is just, sometimes it's hidden away or it's done in an attractive manner. It's not just, oh, let's put a 8-foot extender off your downspout, the sort of thing that you and I can do. It's well beyond that. You can see so much of the work that they do by going to hunterhardscapes.com, and you can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. I've been so pleased with the awakening, the revelations that have come to so many Americans regarding the Southern Poverty Law Center. This is a horrible organization that, over the years, former employees, including high-level employees, have blown the whistle on. There have been entire pieces written around. There was one in the New Yorker that I shared a couple of years ago from a former Southern Poverty Law Center individual that was noting what a scam it is. And it's all about making money and doing so by creating strife. So what has been revealed through the recent indictment isn't new information, but they've been allowed to get away with it because they have been supported by the Democrats, because they put targets on the Democrat political opposition. But they also have been validated by media outlets like the news leader right here in Springfield by using them as a source to identify, quote, hate groups. Identifications that have resulted in shootings directly. Horrible, awful organization. More specifically, we're learning about the whole Charlottesville deal. Now, we know that part of the allegations are that they were paying money to people that were in some of these racist organizations. They claimed that these were undercover people like, James O'Keefe, that would go in there and expose what's going on so that they could help expose these people to the world. Yet, best I know, never did they actually provide those results to anyone. Instead, according to the indictments, a number of these people were straight up members of the Klan or racist organizations that never actually really did anything other than get together and talk about how bad, non-white people are, I guess, had their little socials. But these weren't organizations that were going out and doing anything that was dangerous. But still, the Southern Poverty Law Center were paying people who were part of these organizations. Now you may say, paying them to do what? Why? What's the point in doing that if you're not getting intel to expose them? Just the News has a piece titled "Blind Spot: Media Amplified White Supremacy Narrative as SPLC Funded the Charlottesville Organizer." This is what they're paying for. Stuff like this. Creating the appearance of racially driven danger so that they could go out and do more fundraising. It's all money. Frankly, like so many of these organizations on the left are. Raise money off a problem or an issue, and if that problem or issue doesn't exist, you make it exist. Charlottesville is the event that Joe Biden claimed prompted him to run for the presidency because Nazis with torches and their bulging veins came running out of a field because Donald Trump said they were good people, which of course was a lie. And the event itself, according to the information coming out of the indictment, was organized by someone that was being paid by the Southern Poverty Law Center. By the way, this is that whole scenario is one in which you may have forgotten a person lost their life. You know, there's a crowd and some left-wing protester got run over by a car. Well, we now know that that entire clash that occurred even existed because of the Southern Poverty Law Center. The rally, the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, this is in the Just the News story, was a major cultural touchstone in the first Trump administration that launched a resurgence in concern, especially in the media, over so-called right-wing extremism and racist groups. At least 30 people were injured when protesters clashed with counter-protesters, and one person was killed by a motorist and about a half mile from the protests. In the indictment revealed last week, prosecutors allege that the Southern Poverty Law Center directed a source to promote the Unite the Right rally and coordinate transportation for attendees, only to later use the same event as a fundraising hook to warn donors about the growing threat of extremism. The source identified in the indictment as F37 was part of the online leadership chat group that planned the event. The indictment reads, F37 attended the event at the direction of the Southern Poverty Law Center. F37 made racist postings under the supervision of the Southern Poverty Law Center and helped coordinate transportation to the event for several attendees. Between 2015 and 2023, the Southern Poverty Law Center secretly paid F37 more than $270,000. Yet, despite directly funding one of the organizers of the Unite the Right rally, Southern Poverty Law Center deployed its then Director of Intelligence, Heidi Beirich, to comment on the alleged rise of white supremacy in the United States. So, for example, on ABC News, days after the rally that they helped fund and coordinate, she went on ABC and said, since the era of formal white supremacy, right before the Civil Rights Act, which when we ended legal segregation, since that time, this is the most enlivened that we have seen the white supremacist movement. So it was set up. They paid to make sure that that happened. They paid to have people transported there. This isn't anything new. Whether it was someone like Jesse Smollett, a left-winger who paid a couple of buddies of his to pretend that they mugged him as Trump-supporting MAGA hat wearers in Chicago, or the FBI recruiting a bunch of individuals in Michigan that didn't know each other, including one who was homeless and, according to some, on the verge of mental retardation, convinced them to concoct a plot, or to be part of a plot that the government concocted, to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, so that they could then claim that, look at all these right-wingers out there. Look how dangerous they are. Or the still untold number of agents that were at the Capitol on January 6th, encouraging people to do Lord knows what. You know, every one of these instances that we have seen in which the left has been caught using their position as either organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center or within the ranks of our own government. And when they get caught, they claimed, no, we were there to prevent these things from happening. Yet, in every instance, the thing either almost did or did happen without them doing anything to prevent it and instead being part of it. Does that really seem like a sting operation? Does that really seem like an organization or a government that is infiltrating plots by numerous people in order to prevent them from committing the crimes? No, it doesn't. With the Southern Poverty Law Center, I mean, this has been going on for years. After the traffic update, I want to play a bit of audio for you because one of the talking points that the media has been using, and it's pretty appropriate, apropos, is that, well, you know, I mean, there's just as much violence coming from the right. Now, the reason that's being used as a pushback against, well, another left-wing activist trying to assassinate Trump, but at the same time, their defense of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And they're out there saying, oh, well, according to research from experts, this isn't a Democrat problem. This is a problem on both sides. What is appropriate about that, or inappropriate, is they are using organizations not unlike the Southern Poverty Law Center in order to promote that disinformation. So Katie Pavlich on News Nation had one of the News Nation people look at these, okay, so who are these experts? What are they saying? And how is it they came up with the numbers? And she broke some of it down. And essentially what they have done, and I'm going to play the audio because she explains it coming up, is all left-wing violence they just redefine as not being left-wing violence. So essentially, there's no such thing as left-wing violence. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center coming up this Saturday. They have a very special sale starting at 10 a.m. They will host the 15th annual Spring Highland Cattle Auction. They'll also host a meet and greet for the cows. Isn't that the cutest thing?
Yeah, I like that.
I do too. I've never heard of a meet and greet for cows. So I guess if you want to go out there and see some cute cows, you can do that on Friday between 4 and 8 p.m. You know, it lasts a little bit longer than our happy hour. So if you're out there and want to pet some cute cows, there you go.
Yeah.
As a reminder, if you can't make it out, but you still want to attend, they do have live streaming options and online bidding as well. They use DV auction. Just make sure that you are pre-registered before the sale so you are all squared away. To check out other upcoming sales, visit their Facebook page or their website, springfieldlivestock.com. Click on the calendar of events. And of course, you can find all of the contact information for Springfield Livestock Marketing Center under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
The left's argument that, according to the numbers, the experts, according to the research, political violence is really just as much on the right as it is on the left, is a true emperor has no clothes moment, in the sense that it defies what we all know and see before our very eyes. Anyone who tells you this, just ask them, okay, when? Well, the experts say that the political violence comes from the right. Okay, well, let's go over this. I can give you a number of instances in which people on the left committed violence on the right. I mentioned yesterday, we forget Lee Zeldin when he was running for governor. He was the target of an assassination attempt, of course. Steve Scalise almost lost his life, as a number of other individuals were shot in a targeted attempt by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer, Brett Kavanaugh. And according to the postings of that would-be assassin, he wanted to get as many conservative justices as possible. Donald Trump once, Donald Trump twice, Donald Trump 3 times, Charlie Kirk, all of these individuals, not to mention a number of Christian schools, all wrote why they did it. And it was because of their belief that Democrats were accurate and correct in their description of their targets. Now you go. Well, I don't know, but the studies say. I mean, that's like if you're on fire and somebody tells you, well, the studies say it's not that bad. I don't care I know what is going on. I can see it. So where do they come up with these numbers? Katie Pavlich, who's on News Nation, Geraldo, he's on that network, so he's one of those, of course, that as a left-winger pushes these so-called experts. So Katie Pavlich had one of her folks look into these numbers.
Geraldo. Digging through the data, and what did you find? All right, so Geraldo, see if you find this compelling. Okay. Right? So it seems to me that there are 3 main sources that you hear a lot from the mainstream media that allegedly prove that the problem we have right now of political violence is a both sides problem. There's the Cato Institute, there's the Prosecution Project out of the University of Cincinnati, and then there's the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Now, these are all always shared by the likes of The Economist, the Wall Street Journal today shared Center for Strategic and International Studies. The problem is when you dig down into that data, it is so deeply flawed. Let me just give you a few examples, okay? The Prosecution Project, supposed to list all of the acts of political violence in America, does not list Charlie Kirk's assassination, does not list Trump's assassination attempts, does not list any George Floyd violence. 24 Americans lost their lives during those riots, not listed. But every white nationalist who's a drug dealer, that gets listed. So they list 33 white Aryan Nation people who had a meth lab. This is political violence because they happen to be white nationalists. All right, Cato does not list the 9/11 victims, does not list any George Floyd violence. Center for Strategic and International Studies, where does it get its data from? The ADL, highly partisan, and the Southern, which just was revealed to have allegedly been funding the very racists that they were supposed to be fighting. And finally, I just have to mention this, the Center for Strategic and International Studies has in its methodology section, it says all anti-Semitism is right-wing. Any attacks on Jews or Jewish institutions, they reclassified it. If it was in the name of Palestinians, they reclassified it as ethno-nationalist. So by their definition, there's no such thing as left-wing anti-Semitism, which we all know is just nonsense. This is the data. It is flawed. Shame on the Wall Street Journal and shame on The Economist because they're giving a flawed view. And I totally agree with Katie. It would be so nice to say, kumbaya, we all share the problem. You cannot fix a problem if you are lying about what it is.
All right, so that again was a breakdown of where these numbers come from, and this is, you ask yourself, how is it that they can rig numbers how is it that they can get away with it the same way the Southern Poverty Law Center has gotten away with what it has gotten away with for years and years and years, because it serves the purpose of the left. And the left, obviously, I mean, they that's the media and the Democrat Party. But when you are evaluating political violence and some of the most high-profile, clear political acts of violence, you don't rank, you leave them out of the equation. And I don't know what the biggest joke of all of it is, but all of the left-wing anti-Semitism we've seen on these college campuses, to classify those as conservative students. So they do a study, and she used the term flawed. Flawed is a very, very generous description, giving the complete nefarious, deliberate effort to completely lie about who is responsible for political violence in this country. And they do it because then it allows left-wing outlets and left-wing activists to say, well, the experts say. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A lot going on. Of course, the hour 3 today's show. But before the sun even came up, people lined up in order to be part of that, kicking off the big Route 66 celebration. Tomorrow morning, we'll be doing the shows we always do on Fridays at Scramblers. While we're there, we'll have some tickets for the Hairball at Black Oak Amphitheater on May 9th. Arena Rock with recreations of AC/DC, Twisted Sister, Kiss, Van Halen, Motley Crue, Queen, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, many more. You don't even have to register. We just have some tickets. If you come by, you want some, let us know. And while we have some, we'll just give those to you. And then 4 to 6 tomorrow, Vineyard Market. Going to have a happy hour, half-price appetizers, buy one, get one free on beer. Plus, we're just going to be hanging out. It's a great time. Vineyard Market tomorrow, 4 to 6. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company text line asking if there is a car show that is associated with the Route 66 festival. The answer is yes. And in fact, if there's a pretty good, as best I could tell, I haven't fully navigated through it, but I have just a bit. The site route66kickoff.com, and it's a great resource for information. In fact, that's where I went in order. I found it relatively quickly to answer that question at route66kickoff.com, and there's event info. There's a number of videos. There's festival schedule, kickoff concert, which is tonight, telegraph ball, landmark dedication, car show and parade, red, white, and bridge bash. This is what was supposed to be the opening of the Jefferson Footbridge, but they're not ready to open it, so it's gonna be a celebration for the fact that it will open one day. But I think they're gonna like a big drone thing down there as part of this. Of course, you've got hour 3 of the Today Show, and so there's a lot going on. And the site, it looks pretty user-friendly in terms of gathering information. So that could be a great resource. There's a parade, car show, all sorts of different things that are going to be going on. So really a lot to enjoy, and it looks like the weather's going to be right. I know you've done the weather 80 times. I never really
What day is it?
listen. Well, just for the next several days.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be in the mid to lower 60s.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's not
really,
terrible.
no, not
Light
great weather.
jacket.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Well, it's not, raining down baseballs. So
Yes.
that's always a plus.
That is always a positive. Yeah, and it's going to be mostly sunny.
Yeah, it's going to be
not bad.
fantastic. But it's Route 66, the number 66, kickoff.com. We'll get that posted as well. But yeah, no, I think it's a great resource. I'm sure that some of the other shows today will cover the Hegseth Q&A, if you will, before I think it was the Senate yesterday. And it is important stuff. I, frankly, did not pay much attention to it because I know what it is. And increasingly, but listen, both sides, they're going to look to score their political points and so forth. But Democrats demonstrate they have no interest in the truth whatsoever with these things. And let me tell you why it really bothers me when it comes to this particular deal, and they're demanding answers on the war in Iran. I did watch one exchange trying to force Hegseth to say whether he agreed with as Secretary of War with Trump to attack Iran or not. No, why do that? Demanding to know whether or not he thinks it's a quagmire. We're at war with these people now. Granted, the quote war part of it's really over, at least for the time being, and now we're hitting them when it comes to oil and revenues. But this is a terrorist organization. This is the biggest terrorist exporter in the world. These people are our enemy. Why would you want to try and in front of the world demonize the commander-in-chief who is leading this war when we're in it? What are you looking for other than to help give aid and comfort to the enemy? What is the upside? Now, I don't believe that. Well, and listen, I could almost understand if things were going really badly, but any normal person, and in fact, I'm sure to the chagrin of Democrats, there's polling that came out, shows like over 70% of people think, well, yeah, of course we're winning this thing. While Democrats are running around trying to claim Iran is winning, we're losing this. Are you insane? You're idiots. The problem is your idiocy gives aid and comfort to terrorists who arguably may be clinging on and continuing to fight this thing, thinking, well, if we just wait out Trump and Democrats get back in charge, then we'll have our allies in the White House again. So they could be providing that lifeline of motivation to the terrorists to keep this thing going. If it really 100% is about national security concerns, you're a Democrat and you're really, really concerned about it, you would not be doing this in front of cameras. You would say, listen, we need to meet with you, but obviously we're going to do it behind closed doors, because the one thing we don't want to see or have, the one thing we don't want to do is give the enemy insight into interfighting within our political ranks. But that's the problem. Democrats want to do that. That does not make them very good people, and it makes them horrible Americans. If you are siding with terrorists that we are currently at war with, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say you're not really that great of an American. We have Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 45. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 63. And for Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 63. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, I wanted to read a post from the Springfield Police Department. They wrote, "Stay vigilant. Many in Springfield and surrounding communities have experienced significant damage from storms. Be extremely cautious of phone calls, text messages, and door-to-door vendors who are offering inspections or other damage remediation services. Before you pay anyone for roof repair, vehicle repair, or tree removal, research that business. Local resources like the BBB Springfield can help you with real verified information on the business or service that you are considering hiring." And when it comes specifically to the roofing industry, Josh, he gave me some advice yesterday. He said, do not sign a contingency contract with a door knocker. Make sure that you hire local. And if you need an emergency tarp, make sure to get on the schedule with Pyramid ASAP. And Josh, he also wanted me to warn you with a couple of companies. They are starting to move in from Texas. Local companies actually will farm out their business license to out-of-state companies who want to come in and door knock. And so just be aware that that is going to be happening over the next couple of weeks. And I know that's a lot of information, but if you have any questions, just reach out to Josh. They do also offer free roof inspections as well. So if you do have roof damage, remember the Pyramid Roofing Company. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Keystone. And our author today, Chris Salcedo, if you ever happen to be driving through the Houston or Dallas-Fort Worth area, hear him over the airwaves there. Also seen him on Newsmax TV as well as numerous other locations. And his book is The Rise of the Liberty-Loving Latino, A New American Revolution. And I got to tell you, the first thing I noticed is that it wasn't titled The Rise of the Liberty-Loving Latinx. So that was quite shocking.
Yes, and there's actually a section in the book we dedicate to the absurdity of all of that. And if you want to get into it, we can. But there's a larger reason why I believe the rise of the liberty-loving Latino translated into the election of President Donald J. Trump in record numbers for the America First coalition. And it was because of terms like Latinx. It was because of, and the Democrat Party had basically lost its mind, saying that little Johnny can be little Susie can be little Johnny.
Right.
The best woman for the job is a man in women's sports, or of course men can have babies. Latinos said, wow, that's crazy. And so let's have a look at what's going on the other side. And thank God there was President Trump there, and not like Mitch McConnell being the standard bearer for the Republican Party, or Paul Ryan, or some of these individuals who are your standard surrender caucus Republicans. Thank goodness we had somebody like President Trump that gave Latinos a place to go.
Well, you mentioned that, and I think back to that period of time when he was first running, and one of the strongest voices in the we'll lose all Hispanic support forever was Jeb Bush, and he'd speak Spanish every once in a while, and that there was that universal message that any inroads we've made as a Republican Party with the Hispanic voter is going to be completely obliterated under Donald Trump. And it's just such an amazing thing to see that not only did that not happen, but the tremendous progress that has been made.
Right, and I think it's so interesting you pointed out the Bushes, the surrender caucus type Republicans who have more in common with socialists and Marxists than they do with American conservatives. These individuals, think about what Jeb Bush and George W. Bush were saying. We need to appeal to Latinos because everybody knows that Latinos believe in lawlessness and don't like the Constitution and like illegal immigration. Talk about a racist point of view to assume that all Latinos are represented by what I call loudmouth leftist Latinos and not liberty-loving Latinos who are just as conservative, just love America just as much as anybody else does who is pro-American and part of the America First coalition. The assumptions made, I think, by those who had other interests, more maybe corporate interests, not necessarily American interests, by Republicans like the Bushes, are indicative of why Trump has been such a success, because he's drawing that contrast that I think that Americans are looking for.
We are talking with Chris Salcedo, the book, The Rise of the Liberty-Loving Latino, A New American Revolution. I'm not one that throws around the racist label that often. I think it gets overused so largely. But I got to tell you, I'm just curious your thoughts on this. During the entire illegal immigration debate, which really started during the first Trump administration, or even, I guess, as he was running for president the first time around, you would hear people on the left openly say things along the lines of, who's going to take out your trash, Donald Trump? If you deport illegals, who are going to clean your toilets? And I remember thinking genuinely, damn, that's racist. I mean, just
yes.
blows my mind. And the fact that you can tell the times that they have said it, they so genuinely meant it. To me, that I think that is an instance where the term racist is accurately applied.
Indeed. And you know, when we started listening to this whole debate about whether or not we as a country should accept, and by the way, we're still having the debate, accept illegal immigration. And this is something I brought about in the book, and it's a mantra of the Salcedo show, is illegal immigration is wrong. Illegal immigration is immoral, and illegal immigration is bad for any nation forced to endure it by its political class. I point out quite frequently that illegal immigration has been foisted on this country against the will of the American people by both political parties for different reasons, but by both political parties. And the very predicate that you can't stand up for the rule of law because you believe doing so is somehow racist. And I always ask this of Democrats who say, well, the reason why you don't want illegal aliens in the country is because you're a racist. And I go, oh, really? So why don't you as a Democrat tell me what race you think illegal is? What race do you think is illegal? And they're, of course, stumped because, of course, leftists in this society never have to take a tough question from the biased press or from non-conservative Republicans.
Well, let me ask you this. There's an equation here, it seems like, and you talked about here in the opening, the Latino community recognizing the insanity of the left because of Latinx and boys can be girls and so forth. And then at the same time, you've got Donald Trump in there speaking common sense. If things stay on the exact same track that they are, does that keep the support within that community about where it is? Will it continue to move to the right, if you will, or does something else need to happen? Because it seems as if there's a holding pattern maybe here. I don't really know which way things are going and what needs to occur to keep the momentum in the direction that it's headed. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. And the big problem we're going to have in 2026 is President Trump's still on the ballot, right? Yeah. And the Republicans have set their mind on. I mean, can you tell me a list of achievements of the Republican Party since they've been in the majority in Congress? I mean, running on the big beautiful bill. I mean, okay, you can go ahead and try that, but the lack of productivity from the Republican Party. This is a danger. They're putting the entire country in danger with their deference and, frankly, they're glad-handing with Democrats. And it's not like the Democrats have been behaving like Americans. They've been weaponizing the entirety of government against Republicans. They've been weaponizing that they went after the entirety of the Republican establishment with Arctic frost. They went after the leading candidate for the Republican nomination for president with just an insane lawfare. And it's not like the Democrats are benign or it's like, oh, man, we just have this disagreement on this or that particular issue. They went full-bore Marxist on this country. And they targeted the Republicans themselves, and the Republicans still won't defend themselves. And I've asked, and I get applauded in some areas and criticized in others. I've asked Republicans, why are we supposed to vote for you when, number one, you fail to defend us from Democrats, but you won't even defend yourselves?
We are talking with our author of the week, Chris Salcedo. The book is The Rise of the Liberty-Loving Latino, A New American Revolution. There almost seems to be, and continuing on this theme of the midterm elections, a race to lose potentially. You noting the lack of real potential effective messaging by Republicans. The Democrats almost seem to level out instead of stupidity. But now I'm watching this sometimes real physical divide occurring in some of our cities. On one side, you have white liberals, and on the other side, you have people who are from countries like Venezuela and Nicaragua, and they are all celebrating the arrest of a dictator, and then they're watching the Democrat Party criticize it. They're watching many on the left actually defend and support the dictator that so many of them fled. And I'm thinking to myself, the Democrats are seemingly saying, hold my beer when it comes to figuring out a way to further alienate this segment of the population. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, that goes to also your previous question as well, is how do you keep the enthusiasm in the Latino community going for President Trump? Now, granted, nobody's going to accuse President Trump of not working for the American people. That goes to Congress. They are the ones not working for us. But on this Maduro thing, you're absolutely correct. I mean, you had Ana Navarro, one of the most
Yes.
staunch critics of President Trump, jumping out on The View and saying, look, this was a good thing. This, and think about what the Democrat Party has done, what these leftists and these Marxists have done. They have gone from just a little over 2.5 months ago saying, no kings, to saying, free the dictator, free the socialist dictator. I mean, these people, you're right that as President Trump does everything he can and the Republicans seem hell-bent on losing the midterms, you're right. The Democrats are, with a hold my beer posture, they keep on taking these 20% issues on 80-20. They take the 20% side. And to the Democrats, I say, keep it up. Keep it up. Your anti-Americanism, your hatred of this country and of this president might just drag the Republicans kicking and screaming across the finish line in 2026.
I'm pretty logical person, not one driven by emotion. And you talk about Ana Navarra, and on Tuesday we played audio of that. And then I also played audio of a gal way south of our listening area, but in Arkansas, Little Rock, and the local TV affiliate talked with an Arkansas resident who was from Venezuela. And what I've noticed, grassroots, you have a lot of these people that are sending a message about what's really going on. And to me, this is in response to what they see on the left of defending dictatorships and acting like Donald Trump is a dictator. And it really does get me to start wading into the emotional. And we played the audio of the woman who resides in Arkansas now saying, listen, you don't know, I've had friends disappear in Venezuela, really truly disappear because they speak out. I've had friends that have gone from middle income to digging through garbage to try and find food. And she gets emotional talking about hoping that she can get back to her home now and hug her family that she hasn't been able to. And I think to myself, the audacity of people in this country who live these middle-class lives to claim that Trump is a dictator in the face of real, true victims of dictatorship, it's just inhumane, and it gets me angry.
It should. And think about the sides of this debate on Maduro, right? Who is supporting this action by President Trump? Which, by the way, to all the people out there saying he's going to get us into a war, we're going to war in Venezuela. I kept on saying, no, we're not going to war in Venezuela. If there's any shooting that's done, it's going to be short. And guess what? It was. And he decapitated the head of the socialist snake. And hats off to our military with a flawless execution. They landed in the middle of a military base in Venezuela,
Incredible.
The biggest one. And they pulled this off with Cuban security forces firing at them, no casualties on our side, and took out 32 of theirs, from what I understand. Anyway, so you've got on one side real Americans, freedom lovers, and those who yearn to breathe free, applauding the fall of Nicolas Maduro. On the other side, you've got communist China. You've got leftists in the capitals all over Central and South America. And you've got the Democrat Party bashing President Trump and the fall of Maduro. I've always said there is a new political divide in this country. It's America first and America last. And there are members of both political parties on both sides of that new dividing line. And I think that this anger that you're feeling is going to be one of the defining issues coming into 2026. Just where are you? Are you an American or aren't you? And I think a lot of Americans are going to be real Americans are going to be looking at the Democrat Party and asking that serious question, members of the Democrat Party, hey, are you really an American? Because, and this didn't get noticed by anybody other than me, or maybe if they did, I just haven't heard about it. But did you notice Chuck Schumer, I think he was on with Snuffleupagus. I think it was either that or no, it must have been with Snuffleupagus. So he's talking with Snuffleupagus, and George Snuffleupagus says, hey, Rubio says the United States has the authority to do it. And Chuck Schumer says, no, they don't. No, they don't. As if he's not an American.
Right, yeah.
And I have been saying the Democrat Party no longer wishes to be American. They've set their sight on the Constitution. of its shredding and its erasure from being effective in our lives. And there's Chuck Schumer validating everything I've ever said as he refers to us Americans as they, as he doesn't count himself among us.
Naturally and without thinking, which is it's very, very telling. Chris
Yep.
Salcedo, and I mentioned for the listeners, of course, they could hear you over the airwaves, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Newsmax TV, but also you've got the Salcedo Storm podcast as well, so people can download that the normal places if they'd like.
Yeah, sure. Head over to chrissalcedo.com. That's kind of the one-stop shop for everything.
Okay.
Chris Salcedo, SALCEDO.com. And of course, if you pick up the new book, folks, The Rise of the Liberty-Loving Latino, every book that is purchased, an angel gets his or her wings. So come on, do your bit for king and country.
Thank you, sir. Hey, listen, I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and I can't thank you enough for being with us this morning.
Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Of course, our Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick. Hey, coming up, we got a traffic update. Town Hall has a story with New York City's socialist mayor already begging for a bailout. This is, as Margaret Thatcher said once, the problem with socialism is you always run out of other people's money, and Mamdani doing it in very, very quick time. Don't forget, we do tomorrow morning have our Friday Roadshow at Scramblers, and we're going to also have 4 to 6 happy hour, 4 to 6 in the afternoon, our happy hour at Vineyard Market in Ozark. A lot of stuff going on this weekend, of course, kicking off today, all of the Route 66 celebrations. And so if you're out and about and wanting a place to hang out and get buy one, get one free beers and half-price appetizers and just hang out with some fun people, then we'd love for you to come by and join us for our happy hour Friday, 4 to 6 at Vineyard Market in Ozark.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 45. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 63. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 63.
Only took a few months for Socialist Mayor Mamdani to run out of other people's money, but nonetheless, he has. Yeah, I mean, that's what two of the greatest socialism quotes that I've ever heard, one of them, or that's ever, I should say, been made that I'm aware of. There are a lot of them, but Margaret Thatcher noting the problem with socialism is you always run out of other people's money. Clarence Thomas, though, had and I don't remember the exact quote, but he had noted in I think there was a book that preceded the documentary, in my own words or in his own words, about Clarence Thomas and his life, and he, when he was young, was a radical leftist on college campuses, and he evolved over time. And he noted that one of the problems with socialism is that you're experimenting with people's lives. These aren't academic exercises. It's not some sort of war game, if you will, where in the end you're like, well, okay, now we know what would happen should we do this. But people on the left, and this applies to the Democrat Party as well, obviously, people suffer. Like, real people suffer. This is why they flee socialist countries. Be it Venezuela, be it Cuba. People die taking rafts 90 miles across the ocean to try to make it to the shores of the U.S. It doesn't go the other way. I just don't understand how people on the left cannot figure this out. Even if you know nothing other than observing from which country people flee and to which country people go. If you were in a mall and you heard some screams and you saw everyone running one direction, what are you going to do? And why would you do it? Unless, of course, you're law enforcement. If you're just an average person, you're going to start running in the same direction as everyone else. Why? Well, because you figure, common sense, people are running away from something for a reason. Self-preservation. It isn't good for them. And so you don't even have to know what it is. You see people en masse, panicked, running from one direction to another. You don't try and figure out or argue, they should be. You just go because you don't have to ask questions. You see these maps of migration from people and socialist countries or Marxist countries, communist countries, and they run from one to another, the United States, yet you have these people that frankly are, I can't figure them out, other than they're just idiots. I mean, I hate to be so mean, but how do you look at that and then argue? Well, first off, ignore it. Pretend like it's not occurring, I suppose. But then somehow argue that we should change the way we are here to be more like the place where those people fled to get here. Explain how that makes any sense. Yet it's done. And it doesn't matter how many examples of human disaster the world provides with the implementation of these policies, you still have people on the left here that promote it. And they will argue with people who have fled these countries. I mean, the arrogance. What do you know? And so, of course, in New York City, while New York City populated with a lot of people that are immigrants, many of which came from countries, for the most part, people who came from countries with a more socialist-leaning government in order to get away from the horrors of that government, only to then find themselves with a mayor who mimics the policies and works to implement more of the policies of the very place they left to get away from those policies. New York City facing a $6 billion budget deficit for the fiscal year of 2028. So what does Mamdani want? He wants what socialists always rely on, other people to bail out their failed policies. Mamdani said in a press conference, quote, "We cannot close this deficit with savings alone. We need new revenue, and we need a structural reset of our relationship with the state. This is the only way to meet our legal obligation to pass a balanced budget." So what he's saying here is we need to be subsidized by the rest of the state. We have to be bailed out. Now, some people would recognize that as evidence that your way doesn't work. And in usual fashion from the left, however, it's never their fault. You see this with Cuba oftentimes when you point to the failures of Cuba, and people on the left will blame the United States because we don't subsidize the failed policies. Well, the only reason that people are starving down there, the only reason people don't have electricity and they can't count on clean water due to a lack of energy is because, we're blocking them from being subsidized. We're blocking them from other people giving it to them. Well, why should they rely on other people if they are so self-sustained as a utopian society? A characteristic of socialism is that it fails, but it's never the fault of the socialists. It's everyone else's fault. This is another example of the unfortunate side effect or result of having a federalist system is if you're a country like Venezuela or Cuba and you implement socialism, you get socialists in charge, communist Marxists in charge, you don't have such easy access to dollars from the state or from the federal government because Cuba, Venezuela, former Soviet Union, they implement it top down. And so there's not the separate states in which you can have citizens that vote more wisely and don't go towards those policies. And it allows for the people who vote for these policies to not fully suffer the consequences, the realities of what those policies do, because they get bailed out. They get subsidized. And Mamdani already, just months into it, is going to the state. Oh, we need people who did not vote for mayor of New York, all of the citizens outside of New York City, we need some of their money in order to implement the policies that we want. That's your version of success? And then, as usual, regardless of what happens, even if Albany does start subsidizing the failed policies of Mamdani, you're still going to have complete and utter failure. You're going to have less business. You're going to have less citizens. You're going to have a wider income gap. You're going to have a lower quality of life, because this is what always happens. They'll still claim it's because of the evil outside forces that didn't subsidize their failed policies. Albany didn't give them enough of other people's money. Washington didn't give them enough of other people's money. It's always about other people's money. Collectively, the human species is such an interesting thing, and how you can have, because I've talked about this before, animals, you get a species of animal, and they pretty much behave in similar fashion. Maybe some personality differences, but in terms of survival, shelter, protection, self-defense, food, water, they generally all behave pretty much the same because they found what works, and because of the instinct of survival, they do what works. They don't do what doesn't work. Human beings, you have some people that focus on what works. Let's do more of that. Then you have others who, despite how often it's proven not to work, including their own failures, say, no, let's keep doing that. And then blame the people who have done what does work for not bailing us out because of our failures and our insistence on consistently doing what doesn't work. This intriguing and fascinating contradiction that has been created with God granting human beings free will and an enlightened existence, the ability to think and comprehend and to solve puzzles, to be so far advanced from so many other species, yet to have so many utilize through free will the complete trashing and wasting of those abilities. Just be like, no, you know what? I think instead I'll just be, because I wish it would work this way, even though I know that it doesn't. I think that's what I'll support. Animals don't do that. Democrats do. Socialists do. Marxists do. But animals don't. When you look at that hierarchy, and you look at it in that context, it's quite interesting. Hey everyone, it's Sarah Myers.
Hey everyone, that's me, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Whenever you think storm damage around your home, you probably think your roof, your gutters, siding, but don't forget that your outdoor AC unit may be impacted as well. Now, I messaged Russell over at Foreman Mechanical after the storm earlier this week just to get some advice from him, and he said when it comes to your outside unit, make sure that the top is not dented or beat in. Now, almost everything nowadays has hail guards on it, so it's not as bad anymore if you have a newer unit, but older units, they may have a different design, and that can be a little more delicate, if you will. He also wanted to warn about your roof cap on your on the flue from your water heater and your furnace, and he's already had a couple of calls on that, so put that on your storm checklist too. And of course, if you need an extra set of eyes on things, just reach out to Russell. The team is happy to come out and check on things for you. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Louisiana case ends racial gerrymandering as redistricting legal battles ramp up. Boy, the last couple of weeks have been extremely busy and instrumental in voting maps, none of which really is panning out well for Democrats. The Louisiana case, which was Louisiana versus Calais, centered on whether the state in an attempt to comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, relied too heavily on race in drawing district lines. A 3-judge federal panel had previously found that the district's unusual configuration subordinated traditional redistricting principles to racial consideration. In a majority opinion written by Justice Alito, the Supreme Court affirmed that lower court ruling. So essentially, and I know this seems common sense to you and to me, and not just common sense, but the way it should be, is you can't use the way people look. You can't use their skin color. You can't use their race to draw congressional districts, regardless. Oh, you can't do it for black people. You can't do it for brown people. You can't do it for white people. You can't say, we want to make sure that white people decide the election specifically because they are white, and so we are going to draw up districts in order to make sure that regardless of where these people, that in the district only white people will get their say. You can't do that. Some people don't like that because they are racist, but the Supreme Court has said you cannot do that. At the same time, the U.S. Supreme Court knocking wait, that's the story I just read. You've got the continuing ongoing situation in Virginia, in which increasingly it looks like that Supreme Court is going to knock down the vote and continues to block the implementation of a redistricting there due to that vote that recently took place. And now, town hall, total victory. Florida congressional maps now official. National Democrats stunned. The new Florida map has passed in the state Senate. It now heads to the governor's desk, and it is fire with fire. And it is really hot fire. This could very potentially, well, it's unfolding as a fight that Democrats probably should have left alone.